All right, it's 31 minutes past 7 a.m. It's the 29th day of May, 2025. It's a Thursday, a wet and, of course, a cool Thursday morning. You're listening to the Smooth Breakfast here on Smooth 98.1. We love music and we definitely love life as well. My name is Ayokunmi, and it's that time to take a walk into the major stories, the headlines, the papers, freshly pressed. Another beautiful one to talk about what's been going on in the country. We bring you the stories, we bring you analysis, we get your thoughts as well. It's all about having a mix of different perspectives, and we love to hear yours. So please do share them with us on WhatsApp. The number is 0809 444 0981 0809 444 0981. You can also join the live stream on YouTube. You can find us at Smooth 981 FM Lagos, Smooth 981 FM Lagos. If you're on the app, and if you just want to go through your browser, it's um, youtube.com/ smooth 981 FM Lagos. You can also leave your thoughts and your comments in the chat box there on YouTube. All right, joining me on a Thursday to take a look at the stories as they always do. Mr. C and Wimi are with me in the studio. Good morning to you, gentlemen. Great to have you on the show.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Mr. C. Good morning, Lagos.
Good morning, good morning, Lagos.
All right, a couple of things that we're going to get into this morning. Oh, and today is May 29th, so it's 2 years of the President Tinubu administration. First 2 years done, third year also beginning today. So make of that what you will. We might touch on a couple of things that have to do with that as the show goes on. Probably, I make no promises, but let's see how things go. All right, Mr. C, let's talk about SERAP. They are in the news once again. They usually are, usually for the right reasons. This is taken from the Vanguard, where the story reads the Socioeconomic Rights and Accountability Project, that SERAP, has called on the National Assembly to reject President Tinubu's administration's request to borrow $24 billion, warning that the proposed loan would significantly worsen Nigeria's debt crisis. In a statement posted on its official X account, the advocacy group said the new borrowing plan would raise Nigeria's total debt stock to an estimated 183 trillion naira, a level it described as clearly not sustainable and not in the public interest. SERAP has jumped on this particular issue. It's been in the news since Monday or thereabouts. This talk about fresh borrowing for different purposes. A lot has been said about it, and SERAP has said National Assembly reject this particular request. But looking at history, I don't know if that's something that's going to happen, Mr. Singh.
Okay, thank you, Aya. And we must commend SERAP for continuing to play the role it plays in the absence of any sort of oversight from the National Assembly when it comes to things that they're required to do under the Constitution. Now, for the last 15 years, we have been very, very concerned about just debt stock. Now, we must remember that under the administration of President Olusegun Obasanjo, we got almost near complete debt relief. There's a huge portion of our debt stock as a right was wiped out. Now, what we have seen is that last year's Nigeria's debt stock has been to new highs. And this proposed next level of borrowing is going to increase at least somewhere between 45 to 50%. Now, the question on a lot of minds of reasonable Nigerians is this: what have we exactly done with all the bills debt we have taken? The level of development you can see around the country, is it commensurate the amount of debt that has been taken on? Two, we're witnessing reduced crude oil production and reduced oil price. Yes, we're taking on more debt. What is the plan long-term for repaying these debts? Is it just kicking the can down the road for a later date? So the big question is, should these loans be granted? Now, the president's letter to the House of Representatives, they just really, yeah?
Your audio seems to be skipping in and out, skipping forward, like
Wow.
skipping, like cutting parts of your submission.
Okay, it's actually
No, it's still the same. I wonder why that tends to happen, whether it's a network issue or something like that. Can you just
once.
take a look at that and I
Let me
will,
take a look at this. Yeah,
yes,
let
yes,
Gbubemi.
yes, please do. Wumi, let me come to you right now, even though it's earlier than actually was expected. But hey, we need to do what it is that we need to do. Mr. C tries to sort the audio issues out there. So we're going to take a walk into the Daily Trust right now, where the Action Aid Nigeria, that's AAN, and the Resource Center for Human Rights and Civic Education, that's CHRICED, or CH Rice, if you like, and presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 elections, Peter Obi. Now, they have called for strategic approaches to ameliorate the plights of Almajiri and other children in the country. Now, they made the call in separate statements on Tuesday on the occasion of 2025 National Children's Day. The country director of AAN, Mr. Andrew Mamedu, said that it is important for all to protect the future of the Nigerian child. Now, in a separate statement, Hajia Furera Isiaka, the Program Communications Officer of CHRICED, demanded urgent action to end malnutrition, street begging, and reform of the Almajiri system. It's a long story, but I'll just leave it at that. Now we all know the issues that we face when it comes to children on the streets, the Almajiri, street begging, and so on and so forth. In fact, I alluded to this in during Lagos Talks sometime this particular week, that if you go out there, maybe in your area, or if you go to a particular area, you see a larger number of these young kids who are on the streets begging, sometimes with their parents, sometimes alone. And it's a cause for concern when you think about it.
Yes, it's a real big cause for concern. We have a lot of charters that we've signed up to, with the UN, with UNICEF, WHO, and all sorts of international organizations regarding protection of child rights. But the enforcement, implementation and enforcement, is one of the areas where we're weak at. So let's start with like the Almajiri situation, for example. We've had it since like forever, and there've been arguments as to its role within society in those areas, and why the Almajiri system is important to the culture, to the people, in the areas of the north or even across the country where it's practiced. Now, we hear that, but in many cases, what we find out is that many of these children go to these Almajiri schools, institutions, and their parents are either send them there, or they're picked up from streets and they go there. However, they need to sort of tend for themselves, which is why a lot of them end up begging on the streets, because there's no provision for feeding, sometimes even accommodation. So you find them sleeping on the streets, begging for money up and down, and then they still go back to these schools, quote unquote, to go and learn, quote unquote. And for me, I think that the various state governments, because basic education, primary education is under the state government, have been very weak, in their oversight of these institutions. So no one is necessarily against the system, but how is the system implemented, and how is it being beneficial to the children? We've spoken a lot about protecting the children's rights, ensuring that they have basic access to education, health, and all of that. The system as designed or as practiced does not afford many of them that. And not even just the Amaju system. If you look across, you know, all parts of Nigeria, we have a lot of students, a lot of people out of school.
18.3
Exactly.
reportedly.
And a lot of times when I'm walking abroad or going outside in the morning, I see some children who I believe should be in school just hanging around or hawking things, and I'm wondering what's happening. At some point, I think, I can't remember whether it was Lagos State or one of the other states, enacted a law, that said that they were going to prosecute parents of children who they found, walking on the street. I don't know if that was ever done, but then again, thinking about it, that's even an effective situation. It doesn't really address the problem. Because for some of these people, their parents can't even afford to, take care of them, which is why they place that responsibility of fending for themselves early on in life on those children, which is not fair, to be honest. But then again, it speaks to the wider societal issues and problems that we have. You know, as little as, okay, so many state, or rather state public education systems are largely free, quote unquote. So you only probably need to pay for things like uniforms, books, and things like that. Well, how many parents can even afford those things? You know, so it's nice when the federal government, state governments, you know, all of these institutions make pronouncements about, you know, the state of child rights and child protection and all of that. But then the reality is, what exactly are they really doing? What tangible things, policies are they putting in place? Are they even implementing? Because it's not enough to just have those policies.
Implementation is always a problem.
Exactly. You know, so the Almajiri system, going back to that, seems to be like one of the most, you know, one of the most seen, you know, because it largely deals with children, you know, and there've been a lot of calls about, you know, reforming the system and all
Right.
of that, you know. That lies on the state governments. And if the state governments don't take it as priority, it's not going to happen. You know, we have a lot of going to health now. We have a lot of public health education, public health centers, you know, around the country, situated in local governments. A lot of a lot of them don't even function optimally. A lot of people don't even know that they exist and you can get basic health care from those sort of institutions. So there's also the need for awareness. Largely, you know, at the end of the day, there should be more action and less talk from all
Indeed.
the relevant stakeholders.
Yes, indeed. Mr. C, I'm hoping that the audio issues are a thing of the past now. Welcome back in.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so let me quickly run through my story. So where I stopped was we've had concerns about the debts we've taken on in the past. And when you look at the development of Nigeria today and you compare it vis-a-vis with what has been taken out in debt on paper, there's a clear mismatch. Now, the president has written and said that the 2025-2026 borrowing plan covers critical sectors such as infrastructure, health, agriculture, education, water supply, security, and employment generation, and is intended to cushion the economic impact of the fuel subsidy removal. So this is an implicit admission that all is not well with that removal. Now, we've overflogged this issue, but subsidy in itself is not bad. It is the execution that creates the problem. And we were all clear that the previous mode of executing the fuel subsidy program in Nigeria was fraught with illegalities and a lot of corruption. Now, he's also said that part of these monies will be deployed towards poverty alleviation. Now, that is where I have a major concern. If it is the nonsense they have been doing in the past where they cook food for people we can't see, or they give money to people we can't identify, that is simply not going to work. Now, on Monday, just 3 days ago, the federal government went to town with the fact that they had saved 7 trillion naira as savings supposedly from the removal of the fuel subsidy. If that is the case, converts $7 trillion at today's rates, that's about $4.1 billion. They claim the money was spent on several things. Again, the jury's out on that. Where's the proof? But more importantly, for how much longer will we continue to borrow our way out of our current existential crisis? There's no long-term thinking from any level of government as to how to get us out of this. It's just keep on borrowing money. The next generation or the next 2 or 3 generations will sort it out. That is not the way to go. Increasingly, we're spending more portions of every naira we earn servicing debts. When are we going to actually get down to building this country? Finally, in doing this, he said there are a number of high impact projects that these proposed borrowing will go to. He mentioned the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway and a number of other roads. What I found quite interesting was there was no mention of the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road project as part of the high impact projects. So the question again remains. The abiding question is, why did we need, or why was it deemed very necessary for us to have this project at this point in time? But kudos to SERAP. Sadly, with the current National Assembly we have, they are not going to reject that request. And if he comes back in July and says he wants to borrow more money, again, they will oblige him. Sadly, at this point, we're truly in God's hands.
Truly in God's hands. Okay, let me take a message here. Jerry says, good morning to you too, Jerry. Says, God bless SERAP for always speaking up and fighting for the masses. Since NLC has been bewitched, I would not use the Yoruba term he used, but I wish they could take it a step further by kind of organizing a protest. They told us when they stopped subsidy payments, their lives will be better because we would have enough money saved. But rather than getting better, it's actually getting worse. Borrowing money for frivolous spending. That is always the issue when these monies are, not utilized properly. Chika says, the charge by SERAP to the members of the National Assembly to reject the proposed $24 billion dollars loan is commendable, but a few points to look at. Number one, this government brags it has recovered $967 billion dollars. Two, we're told that removing various subsidies will put an end to borrowing. And three, this government claims it has increased revenue collection. The government also claims it has attracted so many foreign direct investments. Looking at all this and juxtaposing with the borrowing, you'll come to the conclusion that this government is all about propaganda. I'm not against borrowing, but let anyone point to me what this government has achieved with the billions of dollars they've borrowed in the last 2 years. That's what everybody's asking. So much money, but what has actually improved in all the different sectors? I mean, you should be able to see with your own two eyes and feel it, at the end of the day. All right, Mr. C, let me stick with you right now and jump into the Punch newspaper. Still talking about the president. Now, he has restated his administration's unwavering commitment to fighting corruption and recovering looted public funds, declaring that there will be no safe haven for corruption in Nigeria. Now, he made this declaration on Tuesday at the Ministry of Justice Asset Recovery Summit in Abuja with the theme synergizing towards an effective assets recovery and management. A very, very, should I say, sweeping declaration there. But, it's one thing to say, it's another thing to put it into action. It doesn't feel as if corruption is not unsafe in Nigeria right now.
Oh, anyway, let's have some faith, because for the first time, he's managed to seemingly do what no other Nigerian government has done. By proclamation, he has said corruption is not allowed in Nigeria. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt that he's finally cracked the code, and that maybe by virtue or reason of this proclamation, everybody will fall in line. Now, there was some summits being organized by the Ministry of Justice with regards to asset recovery, and they said in clear terms that they were trying to make the process more open, more transparent, more accountable. And they did cite two things they were about to do. The first was the Proceeds of Crime Regulations 2024, which introduces a technology-driven process to track and manage forfeited assets. And the second is the National Central Database of Forfeited and Recovered Assets. Now, all of this is good on paper and good ideas, good concepts. Now, if you've ever had to consult a government website, either at the federal level or any of the state levels, I'm not even going to talk about the jokers at the local government level. None of those websites is up to date. Check the information on the website, it's dated. Now, we've always had a wonderful and interesting record or practice when it comes to keeping records. Now, when you have all of these forfeited assets, they claim that once they get the money, it goes into certain projects. My question is this: for the government to spend money legally or lawfully, it has to go through an appropriation act. Which of these appropriation acts did these monies go to? Now, they've mentioned that there's a presidential development fund into which some of these proceeds go to drive government projects. In 2018, precisely May, the then President Muhammadu Buhari authorized and ensured the transfer of $650 million from the Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas Project dividend account into the NSIA, which is the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, for this Presidential Investment Development Fund. Now, $650 million is no small amount of money. So how are we being told today that proceeds from asset recoveries are going into that fund? What happened to the $650 million? Where was it spent? What are the projects? Can the projects be identified? Can the projects be located? Because we're running in an opaque system when we claim we receive all sorts of monies from asset recoveries, and no one can really tell, including the people making the announcements, where these monies have gone. Take our former maximum ruler, even though he's long deceased, from time to time, monies seem to come from accounts allegedly linked to him. All of these sums of money, what were they used for? So it's all well and good to make sound bites, make statements that seem interesting, but can you establish them? Can you prove that what you say is actually what it is? And sadly, our experience with this particular administration has proven to be quite interesting. More often than not, when they say A and we go to check, it's usually Y or Z. So the big question here is, he says corruption is not allowed. All you need to do is look at the APC, a gathering of wonderful bedfellows, a lot of whom have corruption-tainted controversies around them that have not been addressed and are unlikely to be addressed anytime soon. So nobody actually believes that statement. And that's a sad truth. Even within his circle, they don't believe that statement. Why he felt the need to make a statement nobody will believe beats my imagination. But beyond the rhetoric, people need to see actual work done. Since we resumed democracy in 1999, only two public office holders were convicted. And guess what? Both of them got pardons. What are we talking about?
What are we talking about? Let me see here. Messages here. This is Joseph Maye says, ever wondered how deafening silence of celebration from citizens in the second anniversary of this administration, while the government, which plunged the country into hopelessness, poverty, food inflation, decay medical system, and so on and so forth. The truth is propaganda upon propaganda, and anyone feels this administration has done well. Joseph, relax. All I will say is God bless Nigeria, but let's calm down. Let me see here. Abayomi Animashao says, has anyone in the studio or listeners heard or watched the 22 minutes rendition by Dave Umahi? Then it will be unfair to say the government is doing nothing. You can bless us with the rendition, Abayomi. I haven't heard it. These are contracts in billions, and we can see them getting done, at least on infrastructure and the FAC allocations to states and paying of federal civil servants. All right, thank you for your message, Abayomi. All right, Wimi, let's take a walk back in here and let's talk about this particular story coming out of The Guardian, where it reads, the House of Representatives has resolved to investigate the deteriorating state of Nigerian diplomatic missions in the United States. Now, this follows what the lawmakers described as disturbing and embarrassing discoveries during an oversight visit to Nigerian mission houses in New York, in Atlanta, and Washington, D.C. as well. Adopting a motion of urgent public importance moved by Minority Leader Kingsley Chinda during Wednesday's plenary, the lawmakers resolved to investigate the alleged mismanagement, infrastructural decay, and financial distress crippling Nigeria's foreign missions, particularly in the U.S. Well, I mean, as we know, on one hand, we still don't have ambassadors out there. On the second hand, I don't know why this strikes them as a surprise, because these issues are not new, number one. And it's not as if they've been under a rock. So the issues have been under a rock. They've been in place that people have spoken, they've talked, they've complained, and so on and so forth. Why it's surprising to them at this point in time is beyond me. But hey, they are making a move to at least do something about it.
Yeah, and I just want to also say that most likely not even just the missions in the United States. Take a look at all of the missions across the world. most likely they will find similar things. You know, on the one hand, it's very bad. Like you said, we don't have any ambassadors. 2 years running now, we don't have any ambassadors, you know. Who are the points people in each of all these missions that are charged with handling foreign policy images, representation in all of these countries? You know, are they doing it to the best of their ability, to the best of an ambassador's expected ability, quote unquote? You know, can you demand the same expectations, same, you know, performance of them that you would of an ambassador? On the one hand. On the second hand, now a lot of all these missions run by, you know, budgetary allocations, income that they generate from visas and, you know, all other,
Right.
you know, things and things like that. You know, so maybe it's time to also do an audit, find out exactly how that money is being spent, what's happening in all those places. As it is now, without ambassadors, it seems like the people there have been left to their devices. Who is holding them accountable? What exactly is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs doing, you know, regarding all of these missions, charging it? Because it shouldn't have come to the point where these reps went and observed the state of these missions, you know, or is there a plan in place where it hasn't been implemented, you know, to give benefit of the doubt, for example? You know, so yeah, I'm in support of this audit. You know, it's very, 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 very necessary, but it should not just be for the US missions, it should be for all of the
Should be across board.
Exactly.
Mr.
Okay,
C.
quick one, very quick. It's actually year number 3 has started. That's the first point. 2, there's actually no money now. The government is hindered or restricted by the insufficient supply of cash. That's why no ambassador or high commissioner has been appointed. Now, more importantly, a lot of these missions have not received any sort of subvention in a while. And you need to hear the horror stories coming out from some of these missions, from unpaid rents to unpaid utilities, school fees for children unpaid. It's a real horror show. So I'm surprised that this committee is actually surprised. That is a surprise for me. And outside all of this, when they're done with the junketing, because apparently they travel, what are they planning to do about it?
Well, at least they've made the first move. Let's see if they're going to make subsequent moves to solve the problem. All right, Mr. C, very quickly, because we need to wrap up on the show. I just need you to get a word or two here about Silver Coin Investment Scheme. The Securities and Exchange Commission has warned Nigerians against investing once again in unregistered investment schemes, naming Silver Coin Investment Cooperative Society and Silver Coin Limited. So at this point in time, it's a case of let those who have ears, let them hear.
So, see, AY, this thing is really simple. Some Nigerians have very high risk appetites. For them, everything is a gamble. If it connects, it connects. If it doesn't connect, on to the next one. Now, they know in their souls that these businesses are not legit. What they're doing is akin to magic, but they will not be deterred. SEC can continue putting out disclaimers, putting out statements. They will continue. Now it's Silvercon. We wait for the next one. Let's start a count. Let's start a count watch on this station and see how many more statements SEC will release this year in respect of businesses like this. There is really no point. A man who is determined to jump into a river, no matter how long or how much you hold him, he will still jump into the river.
He will still jump into the river eventually. Well, like I said, let those who have ears, let them hear. All right, let me just take the last few messages here. This is from Idima Pusen earlier, and it says, 2 years of this current administration is like 5 years of hardship already. Hunger and insecurity is still holding Nigerians hostage, yet politicians are being brought over to the APC as if that's their only achievement. May God help Nigeria. Ajayi Oloniluwa says, it's just unfortunate that 2 years into the administration of President Tinubu, none of the many issues plaguing the country, including this Al-Majri menace, is being properly addressed, despite its acclaimed reforms. God help us. And Michael says, who will be like Donald Trump here to save and cut costs? That's a be careful what you wish for at the end of the day, Michael, because Donald Trump is another character in itself. But anyways, we need to, let me see if there's anything here on YouTube I need to touch on. No, okay, there is. Habib says, so there's surprise. So their surprise is surprising you, Habib. That's what Mr. C. Well, I mean, we're surprised at the surprise. Okay, Tony, just in time says, there's simply no end in sight to financial rascality in our climb until we properly get the round pegs in round holes in our leadership setup. We even have round holes to start with, let alone the pegs. That's another thing to look at. Recently, we heard rumors of the stamp duty saga and how the case was frustrated by highly placed individuals and the humongous amount involved. Can government be transparent for once and tell us how much they are making from all these deductions from citizens' accounts after every transaction? The banks are already smiling, an indication that the CBN and government are laughing. All right, Tony, thank you for your message. And thank you all for being a part of Freshly Pressed this morning. Big thank you to you, Mr. C, and of course, Gbubemi for joining me. Just your final thoughts as we wrap up on the show.
Well, 2 years of if you look at 2 more years, it plus X the years of the going.
Plus X, I like that.
We are the only ones that can rescue the country.
Mr. C.
Well, the third year of this administration starts today, and I can truly say we're yet to see anything. And more interesting sights and spectacles, plus experiences await us ahead. Let's just strap in, let's just strap in ourselves and look unto God, because at this point, it is only God that is going to deliver us. Only God.
All righty. From your mouth to the ears of the Lord. All right, Lagos, thank you for once again being a part of the show and keeping it tuned to Smooth 98.1. Do not go anywhere. Don't even touch that dial. If you love entertainment and everything in between, then the Grapevine is where you need to be at 8:15.